Canada, a people's history, proudly presented with the corporate partnership support of Sun Life Financial, Ascenda, and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
In 1858, a young boy leaves his home in the prairies bound for Montreal. His adoring mother hopes he will return a priest. 13-year-old Louis Riel is known as one of the brightest boys in Red River. He has been sent to the Collège de Montréal. His schoolmates are fascinated by his exotic background.
A young man who knew about pemmican and the tomahawk, and had seen the long hair of the Sioux.
While Louis is still at school, his father dies suddenly, leaving his large family to fend for itself. Overcome with despair, Louis writes home to his sisters.
The news plunged me into the depths of sorrow. I was advised not to write immediately so as not to sadden you too much. But I cannot contain myself any longer. Let us cry, now and forever.
But Louis Riel soon recovers and makes a decision that will change the destiny of a people and a country. A new dominion is scarcely born when old hatreds test its fragile bonds. A ringing call for tolerance is silenced by a cold-blooded assassin. This is a story of a people who refuse to submit to the laws of another. And a prairie province born of an armed uprising. A story of great personal triumph and bitter defeat. The completion of a dream to build a railway and a country from sea to sea. It is 1867. Sir John A. Macdonald is the newly elected Prime Minister of Canada. At his side, his powerful Quebec ally, Georges-Étienne Cartier. 4 provinces make up the Dominion. On the east coast, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, with 600,000 people in total. Quebec with just over 1 million, 80% of them French-speaking. And Ontario, 1.5 million and growing rapidly. Though the young Dominion is beginning to take shape, there are still great divisions among its citizens. Language and religion create fault lines that few cross. One who believes the new country can be built on mutual respect and tolerance is an energetic Irishman named Darcy McGee.
I see in the not remote distance one great nationality, bound like the shield of Achilles by the blue rim of ocean. The peaks of the western mountains and the crests of the eastern waves, I see a generation of industrious, contented, moral men, free in name and fact.
McGee has been elected to Parliament with the help of the Irish of West Montreal. He has a rare talent for getting along with all members of the fractious House. He is admired as a writer of history, a poet, and raconteur. But some view McGee with deep suspicion. Once a rebel in Ireland, he now condemns violence and all secret societies that preach it.
Avoid as you would avoid the jaws of hell, this secret brotherhood, whose deeds are deeds of darkness, repugnant alike to the laws of man and laws of God.
His views put him on a collision course with the Fenian Brotherhood, fighting to free Ireland from Britain. Fenian sympathizers in the US and Canada call him a turncoat.
I can see through you well, McGee, for you are as transparent as glass. I am a Fenian, and I give you civil warning that if you ever again speak of us in public, as you did the other evening, a few Fenians, and I at their head, will give you something that you will recollect.
On April 5th, 1868, McGee tells a friend of a troubling nightmare.
I dreamed that I stood on the bank near the Falls of Niagara, where I saw two men in a boat gliding towards the falls. I rushed to the brink and shouted to attract their attention. Then they picked up their oars and rowed up the stream, and I went over the falls.
The next day, he attends a sitting on Parliament Hill that runs late into the night. It is just after 2 a.m. when he turns the key to his Sparks Street boarding house. The Prime Minister's wife, Agnes MacDonald, is among the first to hear the shocking news.
This is how it was. That dreadful night at 2:30 p.m. My husband came home from a late sitting. I was almost half asleep when I was roused by a low, rapid knocking on the front door. In an instant, a great fear came upon me. Springing up, I ran into my dressing room just in time to see John throw up the window and to hear him call out, "Is anything the matter?" The answer came up, clear and hard in the cold moonlight morning. McGee is murdered, lying in the street, shot through the head. The words fell like the blow of a bar of iron across my heart.
Within 24 hours, police have arrested James Patrick Whalen, whom they assume to be a Fenian. In his pocket, they find a revolver that has recently been fired. MacDonald is furious at the Fenians. Civil rights have been suspended. And now hundreds of Irish are arrested and thrown into the Ottawa jail, where they sit for days and weeks without charges. It is enough to be Irish and Catholic and living in Ottawa to be under suspicion. Whalen protests his innocence, but he is convicted. Agnes MacDonald is stunned at the passivity of the prisoner.
They tell me he cannot feel. Whalen felt. The man found guilty of a cold-blooded, crafty midnight murder. The man who for months must have tracked a fellow creature who never harmed him by word, thought, or deed, and deliberately shot him dead. Yes, even that ruffian felt.
On February 11th, 1869, James Patrick Whalen goes to the gallows. Thousands turned out for the funeral of Darcy McGee. There were no calls for revenge, only mourning for a beloved politician with a poet's heart.
I dreamed a dream when the woods were green, and my April heart made an April scene in the far, far distant land, that even I might something do that would keep my memory for the true, and my name from the spoiler's hand.
The murder of McGee causes a hardening at the top levels of government. John A. Macdonald is deeply affected by his friend's death. He will not tolerate those who seek to change society by the barrel of a gun. (1866). Louis Riel has decided to abandon his studies at the Collège de Montréal. Instead, he apprentices at a law office in the city and falls in love.
Monsieur Louis Riel, adult male, and Mademoiselle Marie-Julie Guernon, adult female, promise and resolve to take each other as husband and wife.
But the parents of Marie Guernon break off the engagement when they learn Riel is Métis, part Indian and part French. Angry and disappointed, Louis Riel leaves Montreal. He is heading back to Red River and a fateful confrontation. In the birthplace of Louis Riel, a dispute has erupted over the land. The Hudson's Bay Company lease on the whole region of Rupert's Land is about to expire. The British would like Canada to take over the territory. But no one tells the 8,000 French and English Métis, or the Indian population, what will happen to them. In anticipation of the transfer, settlers have been streaming in from the east, eager to claim a plot on the prairie. Charles Mayer, a journalist and Canadian nationalist, dreams of a new Ontario on the prairies. English, Protestant, and white. He encourages others to follow him.
Farming here is a pleasure. There is no toil in it. All who do farm are comfortable and become wealthy. The half-breeds are the only people here who are starving. 5,000 of them have had to be fed this winter, and it's their own fault.
But the Métis are about to stop the settlers in their tracks.
It was early Sunday morning before sunrise when I saw my birthplace again. It was such a beautiful day.
In 1868, Louis Riel arrives back in Red River. The last time his family saw him, he was barely in his teens. Now he is a grown man of 24, bilingual, educated, worldly. He is expected to lead the family since his father is dead. But provocative acts by the Government of Canada soon throw Louis Riel into a much bigger role. For some time now, surveyors have been marking lots for future settlement by Easterners, though Canada has no authority here yet. The head of surveys makes his report.
Further progress with the survey had been stopped by a band of some 18 French half-breeds, headed by a man named Louis Riel. Mr. Webb was ordered by the leader of the party at once to desist from further running the line.
They have come here to chase us from our homeland. They assume that after 50 years of civilization, our society has borne no fruit. Instead of respecting the laws established in the colony, they have publicly repudiated them.
Riel gains instant stature. Now he must get Ottawa's attention before the land is transferred to Canada. Supporters gather around him, ready to follow his lead, ready to take a risky and decisive step. On November 2nd, 1869, Riel sets off with armed supporters. They have decided to seize the Hudson's Bay headquarters at Fort Garry, the key to controlling the Red River region. Governor William McTavish has no troops to challenge Riel. Instead, he watches helplessly from his study.
As I close this letter, a party of 100 of the malcontents have arrived and taken possession of Fort Garry. Guards are posted at each gate and parade the platforms. They give assurance that nothing will be touched and nothing taken. From what provision they require, they offer to pay in the name of the Council of the Republic of Half-Breeds.
In the early days, Riel and his advisors extend a hand to all residents.
We want to form a provisional government for our protection. We invite you to join with us sincerely. That government will be composed equally of French and English.
At the many community meetings, it seems for a time as if even some English residents are listening. But James Ross, an English Métis, fears everything is moving too quickly.
Your acts are now acts of rebellion. We shall draw down on the colony misfortunes such as it has never known.
If we are rebels, we are rebelling against the company which is selling us and against Canada which wants to buy us. We are not rebelling against the British government. We are loyal to our homeland.
From their secure position inside the fort, the Métis guards dig in and wait to see how Ottawa will react. In Ottawa, John A. Macdonald has heard about the trouble on the frontier.
These impulsive half-breeds have got spoilt and must be kept down by a strong hand until they are swamped by the influx of settlers.
He has already appointed a lieutenant governor for the region. William McDougall sets off for Red River in regal fashion. His luggage requires 14 wagons. He has brought his own piano and a custom toilet seat. McDougall and his entourage must travel through the U.S. to get to Red River. But when they arrive at the border, Métis guards are waiting for them. The Catholic nuns observe the mounting tension.
War is upon us. The Métis have barricaded all the roads and would sooner spill blood than let these men enter the country. How admirable to see the spirit which animates our noble Métis.
William McDougall does not yet have the authority to claim the land for Canada. But that doesn't stop him. He crosses the border and reads his proclamation aloud, though no one is there to listen.
Her Majesty the Queen has been graciously pleased to appoint me for the admission of Rupert's Land into the Union or Dominion of Canada to be Lieutenant Governor during Her Majesty's pleasure.
He issues an order to Surveyor John Stoughton Dennis, raise an army and drive Riel and his Métis out of Fort Garry.
Assault, fire upon, or break into any fort or other place in which the said armed men may be found.
A growing number of Ontario settlers are ready to join an attack on the Métis. John Christian Schultz has been stirring up the English population, especially a young hothead named Thomas Scott. There is a rumor of a price on Riel's head. But Riel takes matters into his own hands. In early December, he seizes Schultz and 56 of his followers and throws them in Fort Garry, ending any serious resistance for now. With the prisoners safely locked away, Riel proclaims the end of Hudson's Bay Company control over all of Rupert's Land.
We have only acted in conformity with that sacred right which commands every citizen to oppose the enslavement of his native land with all his strength.
Louis Riel is soon named President and Commander-in-Chief. But it is not just a military occupation. For several months, he leads a provisional government with French and English members. It includes A.G.B. Bannatyne, a popular English resident who serves as postmaster, and the reluctant James Ross, who becomes Attorney General. Riel is now in a strong position to deal with Ottawa on his own terms. But the path to negotiation is brutally interrupted by a fateful decision. Inside Fort Garry, the prisoners are taunting their Métis guards. The most violent among them is Thomas Scott, an Ontario Orangeman. He brags that he will personally kill Riel if he ever gets out. In early March, Scott is overheard insulting Riel.
The Métis are a pack of cowards. They will never dare shoot me. I want nothing. You are a pack of cowards.
Riel appoints a tribunal to try Scott for inciting violence against the Métis. On it are some of Riel's most trusted confidants: Ambroise Lépine, Elzéar Goulet. The military tribunal convicts Scott. He is sentenced to death. Some English residents beg Riel to reconsider, but he is adamant, saying they must make the government of Canada respect them. On March 4th, 1870, Scott is blindfolded and dragged outside.
The Globe, April 1st, 1870. It is with special regret we have to report that Mr. Scott has actually been put to death. It is said he was murdered, not because he had broken his parole, but because he was an Orangeman and obnoxious to the priests. It is very likely that he was so treated because he was a poor man, and not likely, in Riel's estimation, to have any powerful friends to make much ado about his death.
Word of the execution stirs passions in Ontario. There are calls for Riel to be hanged. The Ontario government even puts a bounty out for his capture. Riel does not apologize for the actions taken.
Consider the circumstances. Let the motives be weighed. If there was a single act of severity, one must not lose sight of the long course of moderate conduct during the troubles of 1869. We sought to disarm, rather than fight, the lawless strangers who were making war against us.
But as the tension escalates, secret diplomacy is also underway. A team of 3 negotiators arrives in Ottawa from Red River, led by a soft-spoken country priest. Father Noel Richot is deeply loyal to Riel. He goes armed with a list of demands for a new province they wish to call Manitoba. To avoid igniting a firestorm in Ontario, MacDonald and Cartier meet the delegates at a discreet distance from Parliament Hill. John A. MacDonald is confident he can stare down the inexperienced prairie delegates.
If we once get them here, we will easily deal with them.
But they are stunned by the steely determination of Richot. The priest demands everything be put on the table, and soon they are discussing full provincial status, responsible government for the citizens, provisions for separate schools for Catholics. Richot argues them into granting 1.4 million acres of land to the children of the Métis.
To conclude this important business, we spent about 75 hours in discussion with Sir George and Sir John. Matters are going well for our poor but brave people of Red River.
In May 1870, their work is done and a new province is born. With the completion of the transfer, the young Dominion of Canada has acquired a landmass of 2.3 million square miles, 30 times the size of Britain, and tucked in the corner of the vast territory, a small province called Manitoba. With protections for French and Catholics and a people now known to the world as the Métis.
No matter what happens now, the rights of the Métis are assured by the Manitoba Act. That is what I wanted. My mission is finished.
But Ottawa is not finished with Riel. He will not be granted amnesty for his actions. To appease Ontario, MacDonald sends a military force west. In May, 400 British regulars and 800 volunteers set off for Red River. They are commanded by Garnet Wolseley. His instructions are to ensure a peaceful transition to a new government. They cross Lake Superior. Portage around Kakabeka Falls. And after a long journey over land and water, finally reach Red River. Wolseley is keen to capture Riel himself, but Riel guesses his intention and slips out of the fort, leaving his breakfast unfinished. With the Métis leader gone, the soldiers are still eager for action. Wolseley keeps his British troops in order, but the volunteers from Ontario run wild, setting off on a violent rampage. One day they spot Elzéar Goulet. The killing of Goulet causes horror in Red River. And convinces Riel he cannot risk giving himself up to Canadian justice. In the coming years, he is constantly on the move. Friends receive letters from Montreal, New York, and Montana, where he marries and has 2 children. The man whose actions led to the birth of the province of Manitoba is now an exile in the United States.
I am grateful to the flag which protects me, not too unhappy in my misfortune. Louis Riel.
In 1858, a London Times correspondent reveals the secrets of a hidden part of the empire.
The soil and climate are good, healthy and genial. Timber, coal and fish abound without limit. And as the country becomes better known to the world, there can be no doubt that its advantages would be better availed of.
Indians, who number about 75,000, have always known about the riches of their land. And now, those riches are claimed by white settlers. By the mid-1860s, the heady days of the Caribou Gold Rush are coming to an end. Most of the prospectors have moved on, but thousands remain. One of those seeking a fresh start in British Columbia is William Smith. He was born in Nova Scotia but moves to California as a young man. He is a mystic and an eccentric.
What I love most, love of order, beauty, the world, the universe.
To persuade any doubters, he changes his name to Amour de Cosmos, lover of the universe, and moves to Victoria. Like most of the newcomers, he is single. There are almost no white women in the new settlements, and the church frowns on mixed marriages. One man complains of his constant loneliness.
There is probably no country where the paucity of women in comparison with men is so injuriously felt. Oh, if 50 or 100 should arrive from England every month until the supply equaled the demand, what a blessing it would be to us.
Women are sent for, and in 1862 the first shipload arrives from England. They are welcomed aboard HMS Grappler. Edmund Hope Verney is the commander.
One female was carried up helplessly intoxicated, and 2 or 3 more were evidently the worse for liquor. There is not a shadow of doubt in my mind that at least 1 or 2 of the women are thoroughly bad, and must have been so before leaving England.
But the newspaper records many happier stories.
Several of the girls are about to be married. 6 marriages were proclaimed in church the other day.
Among them, John Leach weds Mary MacDonald. The young arrival later becomes the organist for the Anglican Cathedral. British Columbia hopes to attract other settlers with generous land grants. Europeans are offered 160 acres each. Indian families are expected to make do with 10. Amour de Cosmos, now editor of the British Colonist, has no qualms about displacing the Indian population.
Shall we allow a few vagrants to prevent forever industrious settlers from settling on unoccupied lands? Not at all. Locate reservations for them on which to earn their own living, and if they trespass on white settlers, punish them severely.
14 Indian bands have signed treaties with the British, giving them some protection from encroachment by settlers. But Joseph Trutch, the new land commissioner, wants these rights rolled back. He calls the previous agreements purely symbolic.
These presents were, as I understand, made for the purpose of securing friendly relations between those Indians and the settlement of Victoria, then in its infancy, and certainly not in acknowledgement of any general title of the Indians to the lands.
It is not the view of one Niska elder.
I am the oldest man here, and I can't sit still any longer and hear that it is not our father's land. Who is the chief that gave this land to the Queen? Give us his name. We have not heard it.
Amour de Cosmos dreams that Canada will inherit the land. He believes it is time to cast off the colonial mantle and join the Dominion. That puts him at odds with most of the colony's elite, who still prefer the British connection. The debate might have gone nowhere had it not been for a sudden turn of events. In 1871, the distant Canadians invite BC to join them on highly favorable terms. They promise to build a railway over the Rockies within 10 years. The astonished politicians of BC would have been content with a wagon road. Amour de Cosmos, soon to be BC's second premier, is swept off his feet.
We have become allied with a people who will rule the northern end of the American continent for 1,000 years.
Wild celebrations in Victoria mark the entry of British Columbia into Canada. The First Nations do not join in. The excitement is echoed at the other end of the country, where MacDonald and Cartier have seen their vision realized.
We are going to tie the oceans together. 100 victories carried over the opposition please me less than the presentation of such a bill. This is my pride and joy. Dear Sir Hugh, the friends of the government will expect to be assisted with funds in the pending elections, and any amount which you or your company shall advance for that purpose shall be recouped to you.
The cozy relationship between the railroad people and powerful politicians has been a fact of life for 25 years in Canada. Governments have sunk countless millions into the railroads, and in return, Grand Trunk money has often bailed out politicians in need. Money greases all party machines, but in 1872, a scandal breaks out. It will all but destroy MacDonald and Cartier's dream of a transcontinental railway. Sir Hugh Allen is one of the richest financiers in Canada. He has made his money in mines, shipping, and the telegraph. That July, MacDonald and Cartier are worried they may lose their majority in the pending elections. Cartier spells out his needs to Sir Hugh.
Now wanted, Sir Johnny MacDonald, $25,000. Honorable Mr. Langevin, $15,000. Sir Georges-Étienne Cartier, $20,000.
MacDonald is re-elected, and Sir Hugh Allen gets his reward, the presidency of the Amalgamated Canadian Pacific Railway Company and the coveted contract to build a railway to BC. There are whispers of scandal everywhere. Montreal Liberals bribe a clerk in the office of Allen's lawyer. They soon find what they are looking for. MacDonald awaits the gathering storm. For once, he will have to weather it without his closest colleague at his side. For some time now, Georges-Étienne Cartier has been feeling unwell. His seemingly inexhaustible energy has given way to constant fatigue. His limbs are swollen. His hand shakes when he writes. The man who once had an iron grip on Montreal lost his seat in the 1872 election. That September, he arrives in London to consult a specialist.
My dear MacDonald, I am so weak, I cannot hold a pen. I use Josephine to write.
Dear Sir John MacDonald, on Sunday night, the evil work became conspicuous. Maman gave the alarm. He rallied his strength and told us himself, I am dying.
When MacDonald announces Cartier's death to the House of Commons, he is overcome. Too distraught to continue, he raises his right arm over Cartier's empty desk and stands, frozen in grief. In June, Cartier's body arrives in Canada. Lady Dufferin, wife of the new Governor-General, happens to be changing steamers in Montreal.
Looking out, we saw, passing slowly in the darkness, the steamer with the body of Sir George on board. It was a striking moment. the chapel lighted up on board, the band playing, and bells tolling at sea, answered by bells tolling on the shore.
Cartier was as bold as a lion, but for him, Confederation would not have carried.
By the summer of 1873, the misdeeds of the MacDonald government have landed on every table in the country. Every day, more details seep out. Though Cartier and Allen's names are all over the Pacific scandal, MacDonald himself has much to answer for. But now, no one can find him, including his wife. MacDonald has gone to ground. The Globe is content to report wild speculation.
From early morning, a rumor has been current that the premier had been drowned at Rivière-du-Loup. According to some, accidentally while bathing. And according to others, that he had attempted to commit suicide by jumping from the wharf into the water.
In the dying days of summer, MacDonald reappears in Parliament. At the end of a long debate over his government, he rises in the House.
I have fought the battle of Confederation, the battle of Union, the battle of the Dominion of Canada. There does not exist in this country a man who has given more of his time, more of his heart, more of his wealth, or more of his intellect and power, such as they may be, for the good of this Dominion of Canada.
A commission of inquiry has been called. The evidence is damning. Support for the Conservatives crumbles, and MacDonald knows he must resign. In the general election held the following year, the Liberals win by a landslide. Cartier is gone. MacDonald is gone, for now. But the country they leave behind now reaches from sea to sea.